Okay, I'm a little bit later to the book today, but I know some of you are following day after day, so I didn't want to miss ya. So we're reading The Biology of Kundalini with Jana Dixon. We're on page 66. If you're following along in the book, this is Exploring the Fire of Life. And we are at the section called No Way Out, but Through. So she says, we cannot whine about the injustice of persecution and the non-understanding of those who are uninitiated and have no idea what it's like to have an actively transmuting body. We must instead return our focus on the singular privilege we are given to experience Kundalini. This is really important, you guys. The expansion of consciousness and the ongoing ecstasy. We cannot get mad at people who don't understand what we're going through. We can't yell at them. We can't shame them. We can't get mad at them. We can't tell them that we are better than them. We can't say it's not fair. If you don't know what the process is, you don't know what it is. So you can't get mad at people, and even if they're persecuting you, you have to just return a focus to the ecstasy that's unfolding inside and focus on your own transmutation process. She says, we must therefore grab the bull by the horns and positively embrace our chemistry, no matter how inconvenient or socially incongruous it might be. In this way, we protect our primary metamorphic chemistry from the perversities of living in an unilluminated culture. Eventually, every human will be lit up. It is just a matter of time. So just because you might be popping first, remember, not everyone's there yet, and it is a privilege. So handle whatever you're going through. To handle whatever you're going through, we must see things from the largest perspective possible and know that we are doing the work for all humans and all of life. Swami Muktananda and Kundalini, The Secret of Life, reminds us of the largest picture, and she quotes, the Kundalini creates the universe out of her own being, and so it is she herself who becomes this universe. If you are having a state of emotion difficulty, first be grateful for the Kundalini and breathe into and release whatever you don't like about your present condition. This alone will raise energy and get you beyond where you're at faster. Just being in ecstasy is not enough. We need to explore the essence of our social dynamic and learn new ways of behavior and response with regard to others and our place in this world. For this, we need to see through an expanded lens, okay? The eagle eye, the higher perspective, the drashta, which takes us into account and integrates the dynamic conditions of animal chemistry, primate sociology, archetypes, empathy, psychology, and spiritual purpose or stance, direction, and the well-being of all life. She quotes from The Meaning of Life again, the happiness of the individual is inextricably linked to the well-being of humanity as a whole, in part because we are social animals which find meaning in relationships, and because cultural progress benefits everybody who lives in the culture. So I have to pause there and just remind, if you are awakening right now, if you are first, so to speak, if you are earlier than anyone around you or in your family, or if you are learning about someone who's earlier than you in the family, that person is doing work for the family and for society. This doesn't mean that they're better than you. This doesn't mean that they are superior and you're not. That's just like the petals on a flower opening. Some have to open first before the others can open. That's part of the collective process. So if you're earlier on, you also don't want to be shaming the others because you're actually doing the work to help them out of love. So rather than going the low road of unconscious conformity to society in order to fill a part of, what this ecstasy period showed me that we can actually be more gregariously intimate with the other through embracing our presence and extending it out by sharing the juice. That is, the source of our social being changes from the mask and shield of the automaton, with its projection of attraction and aversion, to the sharing of a prior unity and a joint participation in the mystery. So here we stop looking for the differences, okay? And we just participate. We just see what everyone's part is, and we just participate more aware. Since we are vessels of spirit, we can only find ourselves and be ourselves in relation to others because we are socially wired creatures. But at the same time, we must be differentiated and transcendent of the social realm through the divine umbilical to the universe. So if we're not adequately bonded with our initial primary caregivers, a Kundalini awakening gives us opportunity to die and regrow toward a higher form of bonding with humanity at large. So you can detach from your primary caregivers if there wasn't deep bonding, sometimes even if there was, because now you're bonding to the greater humanity, right? Through a progressive loss of our defenses to pain and deprivation. So we have to little by little release our defenses to whatever pain's being thrown at us in the family dynamic. Ecstatic love undoes all that the ego tries to protect and sustain itself with. With heart field expansion, we can become wired for spiritual communion and community. That the ecstasy of incarnation is not solely for us gives a new spin on the meaning of responsibility. Responding to spirit. Spirit keeps turning up the volume on the Bliss dial until we get it. That we are a vehicle for spirit, and that spirit is driven to merge with itself through the amplification of its force. If the work of spirit is for the collective anyway, then at some point we should be able to say, yes, spirit, bring it on and give me all you got so I can spread it around. We spoke about this yesterday, being careful saying that. So you might find that a dog barks at your heart expansion energy, for it vicariously inflates their heart field, okay? Humans and all living creatures respond unconsciously to a radically magnified heart field, and sometimes not positively. So when we remember that, your heart field's expanding, not everyone's going to react in a positive way to that, and we shouldn't shame them for that. We shouldn't get mad at them or elevate ourselves and be like, I'm expanding the heart and you're so little or whatever. No, we want to transcend that defensiveness to whatever pain body they're poking and come into a place where we're just spreading the love. Despite the fact that divine union is the reason and goal of all religions, even so, ecstasy is still apparently a dangerous subject when it comes to establishing and maintaining the power differential in the workplace and community. For ecstasy constitutes social emancipation and freedom from destructive social codes and power structures, what she calls baboon politics. Okay, ecstasy gives us emancipation, this feeling of Kundalini, because it is not normal for someone to be in radical ecstasy in a daily life setting. Be careful who you tell. Now, more and more people are going through this, but generally, while we're actively sharing the pleasure of our ecstasy and presence with others, we cannot let on, she says. We cannot put a crack in the cosmic egg of normality and expect others to still participate with us. Therefore, we must do our best to bridge worlds, okay? Massaging others while you're in radical heart expansion is generally not a good idea, for the blood pressure is too low with the expansion of all blood vessels in the heart, and there's no strength in the arms anyway, coupled with slowing and fatigue. So she's saying, don't massage other people while you're in expansion. In Christian theology, kenosis, Kenosis, okay, is the concept of self-emptying of one's own will and becoming entirely receptive to God and his perfect will, or her perfect will. It is used both as an explanation of the incarnation and an indication of the nature of God's activity and condensation. It just might be that a female can be affected by a spiritual male more so than the other way around. Perhaps because a female's brain is more functionally diffuse, with different areas able to take on the tasks of other areas, while male brains are more specific and localized. Since female brain is wired to go unconscious during sex and just surrender, and since Kundalini is similar to sex chemistry but greatly magnified, this means a female awakening might biochemically exhibit more fundamental forms of surrender, which the male body is unlikely to ever experience. So it can look very different, especially an unawakened man to an awakened woman. That can look very strange and unrelatable. So the next section, bliss and the relative domain. Okay, we'll read this one and then we'll pause before interconjunction. Society cannot allow ecstasy. This is a quote. Ecstasy is the greatest revolution. If people become ecstatic, the whole society will have to change because this society is based on misery. Osho said that in Body-Mind Balancing. The bliss is a permanent background, okay, which is impervious to both suffering and pleasure. This is where I always say this too is bliss. It's the Anandamaya Kosha. It's the bliss body. It's the backdrop, the permanent background. This bliss is all pervasive. That we can be in the worst physical or emotional suffering and still be in radical bliss. This is true. Then on top of the bliss, there are emotions, desires, suffering, numbness, anhedonia, and whatever our relative response to life is at the time. She says, I've humorously proposed a bliss scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being when one is in a catatonic-like state due to extreme ecstasy. I would say the Kundi actives hang out between 8 and 10 on the bliss scale. Both bliss and ecstasy of Kundalini are not a mood, but a pervasive state of body-mind. Within this mood might occur such happiness, depression, sadness, anger, fear, and all the other emotions. However, they all occur within the context of all-pervasive ecstasy. Ecstasy is the normal state of a human when the light of life is flowing through the cells. Bliss is the natural state. This is what I talk about in my book, Chocolate Fast, Embracing Your Bliss, One Truffle at a Time. I talk about the big B bliss, your natural state, and the little b bliss, which she doesn't differentiate like that here, but the little b, I say, is the one that you go up and down to. Up to bliss, down to sadness. Up to bliss in some people's definition, but the bliss she's talking about and that I talk about in my book is our natural state, the backdrop. Thousands of years of Western culture, however, prevents the full flow of light and ecstasy except in those who pop. She says few who pop, but I do believe more and more are popping. Desire to some extent is reduced once Kundalini has been working on the body for many years and a state of permanent bliss or ecstasy is reached. But desire is not a problem unless you use it to destroy your life and body, in which case the lack of wisdom is the problem, not the desire. The most useful thing about moving between the grace of ecstasy and then coming down to mortal flesh again is the contrast allows us to continuously work on the pain body. It is like being plugged into the universe, having the plug pulled, and then having to work on replugging oneself back in. In my experience, destruction and creation happen in cycles, but like the yin-yang symbol, each part of the hyperbolic curve of growth and decay has a bit of the other side in it, as a seed form of the other. One example of these cycles is that each period of ecstasy will result in a corresponding revelation in the pain body. So you have this aha, ecstatic epiphany moment, and it shines a light on something in your pain body, which must be entered into with the mind's eye and heart in order to stabilize and integrate the light into that area. That's really shadow work. Thus, the light seeks out and presents to conscious awareness that which is holding back from full inclusion in the perfect communion of cells of the organism total. We establish a condition of permanent ecstasy as the light of spirit increasingly transmutes the body, removing all blockages and deficiencies to its perfect flow. We learn how to conserve spirit's energy and order syntropy through abeyance to certain thoughts and behavior. Know that we can never know the whole of reality in the moment, but reality unfolds like a Chinese box, with the internals becoming ever more fundamental and profound, revealing ever deeper layers of conditioning and ignorance to be carted out of the way. It is perfectly ironic that ecstasy becomes the hardest spiritual task. It gets far easier in time as the nervous system and biology rewires. But you have to be determined to get more lucid with it, rather than merely using it as an anesthesizing drug to avoid your existence. This is one of the reasons why being muse-driven is absolutely essential to the spiritual path. In fact, being muse-driven is the spiritual path. Without somewhere specific and substantial to put the largeness and profundity of our emergence, we are lost. As the heart-brain connection becomes stabilized, our periods of ecstasy no longer disrupt cognitive function, but enhance it to the point where we can live in perpetual illumination. That is, one with the muse, the inspiration, the creative thread, the Shakti. At this point, it means we're basically an adept. However, living up to that enormous grace is the next challenge, and doing something substantial in the world other than mere theorizing. Those are the next challenges, right? Doing something substantial in the world. She says in parentheses, see Quantum Mine of the Biology of Kundalini 2 for more on handling ecstasy. The next book in the Kundalini series includes a light body herbal formula for enabling the metabolism of bliss without reduction in lucidity, thereby gaining spiritual mastery. So that's in book 2. And I guess we'll make this a shorter one today because tomorrow is a longer one, and we'll get it to the end of part 2 tomorrow with the inner conjunction starting on page 69. And I've just got massive ringing in my ears, so that really means something is on. So thank you for joining me. Remember, you can go and read this for free online at lulu.com, lulu.com. Pretty sure it's still there. Or you can buy the book, Jana Dixon's Biology of Kundalini. There's more about managing your Kundalini and what is going on in a Kundalini in other videos on this page. I also offer you yoga, meditation, acupressure points to help you on your journey. If you are interested in any one-on-one sessions, to manage your own awakening process, to receive empowerment or clarification. I also offer divination or empowerment sessions and emotion code and subconscious mind work that helps with this process greatly. So you can reach out to me via my email, stasiabliss@gmail.com. Otherwise, like this video. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe, share this with a friend. If you find that you think someone else would enjoy this subject, then please do share it, and we'll see you tomorrow.